Is $100,000 by 2022 a stretch?
Yeah, really what you've been seeing is Bitcoin sort of steadily and quietly really gaining about 50% over the last just 3 weeks. And so whenever that happens, whenever you're seeing Bitcoin rallying as much as it has over the last couple of weeks, then analysts are coming out with really large price targets. And so you have a couple of them saying Bitcoin could be reaching $100,000 even by the end of this year. So for instance, you have Mike Malone over at Bloomberg Intelligence. He has a $100,000 price target on Bitcoin. And the thinking behind it is really simple, actually. He says that if Bitcoin follows this same trajectory that we've seen Ether follow over the last couple of months, then Bitcoin could easily reach $100,000. And then somebody like Tom Lee over at Fundstrat has the same exact price target. He's looking at it more on a technical analysis level. He was looking at some of the longer term price trends, and he said, you know, what we've been seeing technically, just looking at the charts, you could see a Bitcoin continue to rally. It could reach $100,000 by the end of this year.
So, Stefan, let's bring you in here because Vildana's been talking to a lot of bulls, and we know Mike Malone in particular has been sticking to that $100,000 price target. Where do you fall on that debate? Do you think that's a stretch, or is that something that we actually could see at this point?
Well, you know, last time I came on the show, which is, you know, I think gives an indication of just kind of, you know, how much the crypto market moves around. We were talking Bitcoin was around 29,000, and everyone, you know, there was a large chorus that was expecting this to be a breakdown. It could be catastrophic. You know, we highlighted that, you know, this was still the bottom end of the range, and we didn't know if we could get to the, you know, could rebound to the top of the range. And in fact, it did that then and then another time after that. So the top of the range was 41,000, and it has broken beyond 41,000 quite decisively. But I think what a lot of the bull theses would have expected was that we'd see some kind of a major breakout after that psychological range was taken, and then see, you know, a chase for leverage come back into the space, see basis expand. And interestingly, we haven't seen that at all. And I'd say that implies kind of two takeaways. The first is that the market, you know, isn't quite convinced that this is a breakout, and, you know, we could be susceptible to a head fake. But I honestly think what is more likely that we're seeing here is similar to a start of a rally that we saw in August of last year, where there wasn't a lot of leverage in the rally at the beginning. And typically we look at that as more of a strong-handed rally, which implies that the leverage portion of the life cycle comes later. If that is the case, those $100,000 targets are very reasonable, I'd suggest. You know, last time we saw a move of this little leverage, we were kind of going towards 20,000, and we didn't really see the leverage come into the market in a really aggressive way until we got to about 40,000, which took us to 65,000. So if you map out that kind of life cycle for this move, you know, we could see that kind of a price target realized. However, you know, it is still a tricky call at this level when we're really just getting out of the range. So, you know, I think that the pieces of the puzzle are there for a move like that for real this time, but you know, it is kind of still cautious ground.
So that's something to watch, whether the leverage does come in and fuel the next leg of this rally. But Vildana, what's amazing to me is that you've had all of these negative headlines on Bitcoin. You know, it started with China cracking down on mining a few months ago. Then you had the U.S. sort of zeroing in on crypto as well. And then we had the infrastructure bill, what I thought was the worst case scenario for Bitcoin, that original language that really allows for broad sweeping oversight of the crypto industry. How are the analysts and investors you're talking to factoring that in? Are they just looking past it at this point?
It's a really great way to put it, that it might have been thought of as the worst case scenario. But actually, what almost everybody I'm talking to is saying is that they're really, cryptocurrencies and investors are brushing aside a lot of these negative headlines. So you mentioned the China crackdown on mining. That actually was seen as a positive development because, as one investor put it to me, it shows that Bitcoin is bigger than any one country. So it's a positive development in that way, if you explain it away that way. And then similarly with what's been happening with some of the tax talk and the implications from the infrastructure bill, what a lot of people are saying is, well, if 2 or 3 years ago, it would have been unthinkable to have senators talking about cryptocurrencies, and some senators even taking the pro-crypto side. And that's exactly what we've been seeing happening over the last couple of days. They've been debating how cryptocurrencies potentially should be taxed. And so that, again, is putting cryptocurrencies in the mainstream. It's a really positive way to think about what some of those potentially negative implications might be, but a lot of investors are sort of flipping it on its head and thinking of it as a really positive development, in that you do have these high-ranking officials talking about cryptocurrencies in the US Senate.